Welcome back to Reality Bites Radio with Thomas Sheridan on the 24th of October 2013. Again, we're talking off the break there. We were discussing the newspapers at first, and we went on to Russell Brand. Just a brief thing about the newspapers. I mean, over the past few months, 4 or 5 months, whatever, it's become apparent that the mainstream tabloids and the broadsheets are seemingly, identical nowadays. They all have the 3 or 4 headline stories, all saying exactly the same thing, and the rest of the papers, whether it's a hard copy or online, are just full of trivia, absolute trivia, and it's just senseless stories. We had Yetis a couple of weeks ago, and it's just rubbish like that, and it says a lot about people that are still buying this stuff off the shelves. I don't know what you want to make of that, Thomas, but I just think it's hard to read one of these papers now because it's just rubbish.
I find the broadsheets they've also transformed. Now, the broadsheets in the past were always sort of like the thinking man's newspaper, that kind of thing. But ultimately they were just editorials. I used to remember reading the New York Times, and I saw, especially the Guardian is really bad for this, and the Irish Times, is that they did not actually report anything. Everything was written in the form of an editorial. So if they were reporting on, a house went on fire, they would say something like, today a house went on fire in Boston due to climate change. That kind of a thing. There was always the spin towards whatever the common purpose, London School of Economics, Fabian Society agenda was. But even now, the broadsheets are not doing that. I'm seeing more and more and more stories in the broadsheets surrounding celebrities. And they'll use some kind of sanctimonious platitudes surrounding celebrities in order to justify them to get them in the papers. Whereas Sinead O'Connor, having a go at Miley Cyrus, they'll put her in the paper. Or if it's Russell Brand, the latest sort of like Pied Piper, they put him in the paper. It's all about any excuse to put a footballer, a celebrity, or any kind of person like that in the paper. It's bread and circuses, but it's bread and circuses in a very kind of clandestine manner.
Yeah, I suppose we've got the similarity with the bread and circuses. We've got experts and celebrities. You've got the experts for everybody's to believe an expert, and the celebrity, well, everybody's to follow a celebrity. We've got these people are put on this pedestal for some supposed talent. I mean, I don't see any talent that Russell Brand's got except for growing hair, apparently. I mean, that's about it. There's certainly nothing intelligent comes out of him. I don't know, he's supposedly a comedian, or I don't know what he is. I've never found him funny. But yeah, look at your website here. He's shaking the hands with the Queen. It's nice. It's quite a funny handshake he's given her there, actually. But
have you noticed that? Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that handshake before. This guy's been into the drug scene and all the rest of it, and there he is meeting the supposed head of state, big smile on her face, looking at a junkie. I mean, what's that about? Maybe she's thanking one of her customers, I suppose. Thanks for your business. Yeah.
Well, can I read this article out to your listeners just to show where I stand on this guy? Okay, the title of the article was that, a reason I wrote this is because I was seeing all over my Facebook wall and all over the so-called alternative media, people going on about Russell Brand's appearance on the Paxman show and a few other things he's done recently as somehow proof that he's like some kind of counterculture, alternative guy within the media, in the mainstream. And they're literally going bonkers posting this guy's videos as if he's some kind of messiah. And that's an interesting thing, because I want to read this article I wrote today. It's just a very short one. I only posted this about 2 hours ago, and it's already the second most read article on the history of my blog, which shows you the power of celebrity. And that's, I'm not bothered. I'm glad that people are finding my blog. But within a couple of hours, it's now more read than just about every article on my blog, just because Russell Brand's name is on it. And the article is called "Russell Brand Isn't Waking People Up, He's Putting You Back to Sleep." It always amazes me how so many people who consider themselves to be awake still consider their beliefs being stated on the mainstream by a celebrity as being a higher accolade validation than any other outlet, research, or even their own convictions. Russell Brand is a pseudo-intellectual, overpaid, middle-class media lobby who's put out there by the BBC and The Guardian to make you forget all about Jimmy Savile and to quell your anger in a delusional state that he is waking others up. Russell Brand is put on the TV screens to placate the ones already awake and to put you back to sleep in the belief that it is some kind of victory. It isn't. It is showbiz being used as a social engineering tool yet again. You do not need the BBC or Russell Brand to validate your convictions if you genuinely feel that strongly about them. The truth is already self-evident. No mainstream media, political or celebrity validation is required. The Jimmy Savile Horror Show is the ultimate weapon we have in our arsenal, which we can wake people up with. The BBC knows this, and so do their owners and personal friends of Jimmy Savile, the royal family. So they throw you a truth bone, quote unquote, in the form of a celebrity platitude prosaic performance in the guise of Russell Brand talking about revolution when in reality it's about distraction. Do not be bought off with this rubbish. Keep the Jimmy Savile anger raging. It is the key to bringing the whole pyramid down. Russell Brand's image is also very Christ-like, and this is still a very powerful archetype people are wooed by. The Christ image was also utilized by the CIA creation Jim Morrison to act as another Pied Piper for the anti-Vietnam War generation in the late 1960s. This is the same tactic being used again. Forget your anger at the system. A celebrity will come along to fight a revolution for you on the telly. And that's exactly how I feel about it. It's one more externalization of your potential to say, I don't have to do anything. Russell Brand is talking about it on Newsnight.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you just abdicate your responsibility to these people, don't you? You're responsible to do something about it and to speak out about it, but you latch into this celebrity or expert, and you say, oh somebody's doing something about it. I don't have to do anything. I'll continue. I'll go back to watch the football. Everything will be all right in the morning. I was just I said to Vera, I was looking at his name. And I wonder if it's a three-barrel name and it should actually be Bertrand Russell Brand, a brand of Bertrand Russell. You know what I mean? Because I mean,
well, the way they're all related. You know who his grandfather is? Frank Spencer. You know Frank Spencer. What was that actor's name? Michael. I can't remember his name. On a TV show, some mothers do have him back in the 70s.
Crawford.
Michael Crawford. Apparently, someone told me today that that's his grandfather. And yet, so here's more proof that they're all related at some level.
Yeah, well, I mean, Michael Crawford went on to be the Phantom of the Opera, didn't he? As well, yep. I believe. Yeah, it's celebrities, but they go through kind of generations. I mean, this guy, Brand, was it him that was involved with Jonathan Wass, as he likes to be called, over the remarks he made on television, or was that somebody else? I can't remember. And they were banned and all the rest of it, and hyped up. But he was all over the press for all the wrong reasons. And then he comes back. As you say, he's a messiah. He's risen from the dead, as it were, in his public image. And now he's back fighting the good fight for the ordinary people, But I wonder how much he's got in his bank account. I bet he's not having to suffer austerity like the rest of the ordinary people he's supposed to be talking for. Other people like I've lost the guy's name. Doesn't matter. Yeah, but I mean, celebrities in general, they're trotted out repeatedly, like over the years. I mean, these people would be nobody if they were off the TV screens for 6 months. People would forget about them. Yeah. But they're continually regurgitated. And I'm sure somebody's making a bit of money off the back of it as well. Of course, I'm sure they'll go on to
Billy Bragg with his red socialist kind of thing. I mean, that guy has been famous for years now, talking about socialism. It's amazing, and it's like, who gives him the authority to actually get out there and talk about this stuff? Nobody. He's just a guy in a band.
Yeah, and he's got socialism now, so there's nothing else to talk about, I suppose.
Oh no.
That reminds me of a day up in Edinburgh. I was walking along Princess Street. I know you've been in Edinburgh, Thomas, haven't you?
Yeah.
You go along to where not the Caledonian, the one at the Balmoral, at the far end of Princess Street, and there's a statue there, sits outside registration house there, and socialist workers people always stand around there, handing out their well-funded newspaper with their well-funded banners, and I was walking by one day and the two of them were handing out the papers. I said, so what are you protesting today, lads? They were, socialist worker. I says, well, you've got socialism, you may as well go home. I says, you've got Alex Salmond to run the country. What more do you want? You know, and I was told to go away in no uncertain terms. But you know, it's quite pathetic.
Well, the SWP is just the SWP's purpose is to try and sabotage any kind of general or genuine counter revolutionary or activist movement. I'm absolutely convinced that this SWP is made up of two people. They're all rich. They're always rich to begin with, but they're all government spies or kind of unstable individuals who are very easy to whip up at protests, and will call somebody a rapist or a pervert or a racist at the drop of a hat. Their purpose is that. They're absolutely fanatics. The SWP are actually a cult, in my opinion. And there's so much to actually show that their methodology is cult-like. For instance, like you said, they stand at the end of Princess Street in Edinburgh, waving their flags and handing out their papers. Well, who else does that? Moonies, those kinds of organizations. They constantly are put into a state of repetitive learning of Trotskyite doctrine. So they're literally quizzed and constantly reading Trotskyite doctrine. And that's just like a cult where you have to read the same things over again. Indulge in confirmation bias, groupthink is everything. And finally, at all these Socialist Workers' Party demos, what do you have? The drummers going... That drumming is also to create hypnotic states, to actually put them in a state of mind control. The Socialist Workers' Party are a fanatical cult, political cult, using cult-type techniques in order to sabotage and destroy genuine activism within the countries that they're based in, particularly the UK and Ireland. I have never met a member of the Socialist Workers' Party that was actually from a working class background. Not a single one.
Sorry, I was trying to look something up online and the socialist workers. My computer's frozen, but there you go. Is that a conspiracy? I don't know. Oh, it's unfrozen now. No, it's not. No, they've got an appeal on the website, actually. It's Socialist Worker Appeal, Building the Fight Back, whatever that means. Help us raise £150,000. So
sell one of their stately homes, they'll be fine.
Yeah. And it's funny, they've got a logo at the side of that saying "Join the Socialist Workers' Party," and it's a clenched fist, but it's in a green circle. You know, so there's your there's your melon. You know, green on the outside, red on the inside. Yep. But they're also on board with the whole Grangemouth refinery dispute, as it's been called. But I've just been listening to that. I was listening to Radio 4 this morning, and I just think this is to do with the drive for independence. I think I can see Alex Salmond riding in on a big white horse and saving the day, and saying this is how good Scottish independence would be. You know, or they'll nationalise it or something and take it over and say, "Oh, this is what we can do for Scotland. We can rebuild Scotland." Blah 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 blah. You know, it's just the timing of it is just bizarre.
Well, the tragedy of Scotland, right? Like Ireland and Scotland both lost their freedom on the same day, 1801, to the Act of Union. We were both incorporated into the United Kingdom. Most of Ireland got its freedom in 1922 and enjoyed freedom until 1973 when we joined the European Union. At least Ireland had about 50 odd years of true sort of freedom. The tragedy of Scotland is that it's going to, the whole selling the whole thing in Scotland as we'll be like Ireland, we'll be free. But the reality is that Scotland will go straight into the European Union and won't have any freedom.
Yeah, the independence will last less than 24 hours, I believe.
The pardon.
Yeah, and I don't know why people don't get it. I mean, I used to, to my shame, actually campaign for Alex Salmond when I was young and stupid. And I was a great believer in the Scottish independence movement and all the rest of it. And I kind of got disillusioned with it when I got a hold of some documents on Ravenscraig when they were shutting that down. Somebody I knew worked for the company who was assigned the commission to look into the clean-up that would be required. And I got a hold of those documents, and the place was so toxic, they were told that they couldn't build homes in it for a century or something like that. And basically the conclusion of the report was that British Steel would have to excavate the whole area and then ship all this toxic waste off somewhere to even start cleaning it up, which of course they didn't want to pay for. And I had, I think it was Kenny McCaskill, I can't remember until I think it was Kenny McCaskill, round my house picking up those documents, and that's the last I heard of it. And I thought, yeah, that's not right. So that was me finished with my SNP campaigning. But I mean, those same characters are still in power in Scotland today, and people believe they've got a choice in these so-called elections. They should be called elections, because all the people put up there have been selected for you to vote for. It's which millionaire do you want? And I've said to friends up in Scotland, I said, you've had the same politicians in power since I was old enough to vote. That's 32 years. You've had the same people. How much money have they made out of this over all those years? How and what's happened? Nothing. The country's collapsing. All the industry's gone, all the shipbuilding's gone, all their utilities have been sold off to parasitical multinational corporations, all in the name of competition. And the only thing we've got is monopoly. There is no competition. One electricity company puts its prices up by 10%, so does the other one. And people just can't see it. And as I say, I go back to what are they thinking? What are people thinking nowadays? You
talk about that corruption. I know, I live near the border here, so I meet people from Northern Ireland all the time. And they got their parliament or body, whatever you want to call it, their assembly, about 14 years ago now, 13 years ago, and it's a big gravy train. One woman was telling me that in her constituency, the Sinn Féin guy, who's actually the MLA member there, which is the nearest thing they have to a PM, a politician, a representative politician, has put basically his whole family on the public trough. So his daughter works at some kind of research. His wife got a job in the civil service. And the local newspaper showed that this one family, due to this guy for Sinn Féin getting elected, are taking in something like £700,000 in combined salaries and expenses every single year. And there's still no more democracy than when they had direct rule from London.
No, and that what's it? The Northern Irish Assembly, I think it's called. It was shut down.
Northern Ireland. Yeah, the Northern Irish Assembly. Yeah. Yeah,
it was shut down for years, and they were still taking their salaries, I believe.
Yeah, and they were based. At one point, the Irish government was running it, and the unionists were perfectly happy to not complain once they were getting paid. So it shows that none of them have any convictions.
No, or ideology or ethics at all. I mean, if somebody turned around to me and said, "I'll pay you, just shut up and do it." I mean, for one thing, you'd be bored out of your tree. Really, you'd sit at home and do nothing. Make out you're actually trying to get this thing back on the rails and stuff, which you're obviously not, because you've no interest in it. Because as you say, you're only in it for the money. So it's easier not to have to do it than actually stand up there and pretend you're doing it, I suppose.
Well, a few months ago, I ambushed Jeffrey Donaldson of the DUP, the Democratic. I didn't literally ambush him. He was at an event I was at, and I ran up and got talking about the fracking. He hadn't got a clue, or didn't even know what fracking was, and yet they were fracking just across the border from his constituency. And his constituency, a big industry there, fishing, salmon and trout fishing, tourism and boating, stuff like that. And here was, across the border, a fracking machines like wrecking the water supply. And he hadn't got not only had he not got a clue what fracking was, and genuinely hadn't got a clue, how about the look on his face, but his mentality was that the poison would stop at the water at the border. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't like as if the Republican, as the Free State, or whatever you want to call it down here, Irish Republican contaminated water would literally stop at the border.
Yeah, they can only do that with fluoride. Yeah, they can only do that with the fluoride. Yeah. No, I've got my own kind of thing on fracking. I think, I mean, whatever way it goes, whether it's fracking, the contaminated water, whatever they do in that kind of side of it, it's bad. Okay. If they leave the gas in the ground, it's bad because people are freezing to death. And I was thinking, perhaps it's not as complicated as it's made out to be, and that's why they're pushing it towards big industry, so that it makes it look like the experts have to deal with it. Maybe it's just as simple as a guy going out, like in the first days of the oil industry, and putting a derrick up in his field and drilling a hole and getting this stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's gas.
With the oil, if they don't get the gas, if they don't find it, you still have this enormous environmental damage from these kind of slurry lakes they have to create. And it's like and who's paying for that? Well, the public is paying for that. The gas company and the oil companies are paying for it. I mean, on every level, it's madness. And it started with the wind turbines. You know, the wind turbines, we were supposed to embrace them as wonderful things. Well, I know for a fact, I don't know how it is in Scotland or in England, but in the Republic of Ireland, the wind turbines were put into the most rural areas for the simple reason that they could rezone the planning laws in rural areas for industrial usage. And the industrial usage was the fracking machines. Everywhere the fracking machines are, there's already turbines there. It was a big scam that they had planned for decades.
Yeah, well, you're up in Sligo. I was down when I lived over there for 12 years. I was down in Roscommon. I mean, they were all, every hill had them on them there. And I actually painted somebody's house, a farmhouse, and there was a wind turbine literally about 200 metres from the house, and you could hear this thing inside the house, the noise of it. And I don't know how people could live there.
I know. Well, they flooded them, and they kick up a hell of a racket. They put them in where you were living in Roscommon, in North Roscommon, and on the Leitrim border. And up there, they knew there was gas there, and they knew because that's where all the coal mines used to be before they shut them down. And there's still coal down there, by the way, but they just shut them down because
up in Arigna.
Yeah, in Arigna, there's still coal down there, and. That's where they put all the turbines on those hills around Keju and play. Beautiful, picturesque area for the simple reason that they knew the fracking machines were eventually going to move in there.
Yeah, I mean, you can go up to Rignan and still actually get some coal. You know, the miners, the ex-miners started up a tour company there, so you can actually go down the mine on the trolleys and do a tour of the mines. There's plenty of coal down there.
It's just like what they did in Scotland and Wales. They shut them, and the north of England, they shut them down so they could make more profit importing coal from Poland.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one report I read, there was at least 300 years worth of coal still under the ground in Britain, and here we are closing power stations, and because of global warming, you know, supposedly, and you know, we've got pensioners freezing to death, and the fact that they've closed more coal power plants this year means that more people are going to freeze to death next year. So somewhere along the line, the people that have made that decision are complicit in the murder of those people, in my opinion, because they know the consequences of their actions. Well. You know,
and I don't know how it is in England, but they've outlawed the burning of coal in a lot of Irish urban areas. So you can't actually have coal, and coal is the thing that really does, you know, whack up the heat, you know, in terms of solid fuel. And yet they banned it in urban areas. So the whole thing is a scam to get people on utilities. And if they can't afford them, well, you know, tough luck.
Yeah, I mean, in Bulgaria, I mean, everybody burns wood and coal. I mean, some of the cities are quite smoggy, but not as bad as they make out. But you know, all the villages there, they all burn wood all through the winter and coal. You drive around there, you can't see where a tree's being cut down. Anywhere. It's so well managed. I mean, they talk about the environment and everything. Can't burn wood because of the environment. Well, you know, over there, they've been doing it for thousands of years, and you still can't see where the trees have been cut down. So it's doable. Yeah. You know,
totally doable. And you know, they know it. That's how it was in these islands as well. When we had deciduous woods, that they were like managed in such a way that one tall like oak or ash or some kind of tree like that produces an enormous amount of fuel, and yet they don't. It's not exploited. The trees in the commercial forest are used for making paper.
Yeah, well, when I was at school way back in the day, I left in 1979, I was told around about 1974, 75 that within 10 years it would be a paperless society. So,
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I look at all the computers now and all the paper they're generating, and you wonder, before computers we used far less paper than we use now. Without a doubt. So we're supposedly trying to save the planet by protecting the rainforests and all the rest of it, yet we're still prepared to cut down trees and make paper out of them.
And you look at these companies that make paper, like, what you call it, I forget, the Smurf in Ireland, and there's like Louisiana Pacific in America. These are enormous companies with massive profits, and all they do is make really paper, computer paper, in the so-called paperless society.
Yeah. I saw something in the Irish Independent today I wanted to talk to you about. It was Ming Flanagan. He's up around you, isn't he? Donegal or Roscommon?
No, he's on the border of Roscommon and Leitrim, closer to where you were.
Yeah. I think I met him once before he started with a shirt and tie, and back then he was talking about legalising marijuana and stuff. And now he's in the papers today pushing for it and saying it could save the country €300 million annually. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I actually quite like Ming. I think he is sincere. I think like the fact that he gives half his salary away to his social projects and stuff in his community, I quite like that about him. I think he is a sincere guy. Whole thing with the legalization of marijuana, I mean, to me, that's just another carrot they hold out to people. I don't think it's healthy that people, they associate marijuana legalization with freedom. Like, as someone recently said to me on my Facebook page, they might as well be living on a psych ward. Access to drugs does not equal freedom. And for a lot of people today, particularly people who are obsessed with, marijuana and whatever, those kinds of drugs, they associate access to that and freedom. Now, I know there's like all sorts of things that cannabis can be used in the treatment of various cancers, and that's all wonderful stuff, and that should be put out there as access. And I don't care. I'm an anarchist. I believe that if people want to inject themselves with cooking oil, that's their own business. I think that all drugs should be legal anyway, and that's the end of it. Once put the drug dealers and then the drug traffickers and the CIA out of business. But I think this is just another ruse to make it sound like it means something. We could start a marijuana business in Ireland because apparently I don't smoke any of that stuff myself, but apparently it grows very, very well here. From what I've been told, and it's just one more meaningless policy, if you ask me. At the end of the day,
yeah, I just mentioned it because you meet so many people in the so-called truth movement who are knocking this stuff back on the hour, every hour kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
And I think how are you supposed to keep a straight head and think things through and stuff like that? It's like me having a pint of beer every hour and then trying to be coherent. It's just doesn't work, and
if I'm taking on psychopaths, I want to be lucid and coherent. I don't want to be like
out of it,
either drunk or stoned, or medicated. Yeah. And then so many of them are against, they post links to things about overprescription of medication, and then as you said, so many of them in this movement, they're skinning up constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I met a couple recently, and they're really. They're quite focused on the subjects that they want to research and stuff, but half the time you phone them up and they're basically incoherent. You can't get
I know that happened the other night with somebody.
Yeah.
It's depressing, actually.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately the perception of how should we say ordinary people would be that people who are trying to get the truth out to what's going on are kind of associated with that as well, and we're all kind of, free love, dope smoking hippies, and it does us no favours. But
that's how the CIA quelled the Vietnam War anti-Vietnam War movement, and also the Black Panthers is the same thing. You know, it's just like you know, what was his name? Aldous Huxley said, the scientific society would be to keep them medicated so they would love their slavery.
Yeah. People would come to love their servitude.